In chapter 20, section 3b, we start talking about the aftermath of when Luther put the 95 Theses on the church door in Wittenberg. So there's revolts in Germany that start because people are very inspired by Luther going against the church. The peasants were suffering from poor crops and high taxes paid by the poor to the nobles. So the peasants go against the nobles and they try to defeat them. It was not a success, but it showed that people were learning that they could start standing up for themselves because Luther was so inspiring and because the printing press got that message out that it was spreading across Europe. The Catholic Church, why couldn't the Catholic Church stop Luther? People of different countries were not necessarily supportive of Luther. However, they were supportive of not having to follow the church. Remember, we have all the fighting between the emperors and the pope who could be in charge. Well, the different countries took the opportunity to follow Luther so that they would weaken the power of the church. Also, it would mean that the tax money wouldn't go to the Pope, which made Luther stronger and the church a lot weaker. So they end up having to make a decision with the Peace of Augsburg, which established that the Protestants would be in the north and the Catholics would be in the south. So it really did a dividing line on what parts of the world would be Catholic and which parts would be Protestant. The Reformation spreads into Switzerland. Predestination is when God decides whether somebody will or will not go to heaven before they're born. This is the belief of Calvinists. And so my biggest question, so I put this in the notes, is if you are already pre-decided whether you're going to go to heaven, why would you live a good life? What Calvinists believed is that in order to prove that to other people that they were going to heaven, they would behave well and work hard because that must mean that God picked me. So that's called the Protestant work ethic. And so that's kind of a big foundation of Calvinism. Calvinists also believe that the church members, not the king, should pick the clergy. So again, that's a little bit crossing in between the church having control over the state. So this is just a branch of the Reformation, and you'll see that there's going to be different branches of Protestantism that spread across Europe and into other parts of the world. In particular, England. So I'm going to highly encourage you to watch the video on Henry VIII, one of my favorite characters in history. The biggest thing with Henry VIII is he does end up having 6 wives. And he does end up starting the Anglican Church of England. And it was not because he believed, like Luther did, that people can have a personal relationship with Jesus. He did not like that the Pope told him what to do. And so he said, fine, if you're going to tell me I can't have an annulment, then I'm going to just start my own church. And he called that church the Church of England. And that's right, that Henry was the control of his church. He ends up marrying Catherine of Aragon, a Spanish princess. Has his daughter Bloody Mary, ends up when he doesn't have a son, because having a son was very important, he got his marriage annulled to Catherine. Then he ends up marrying Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn again has a daughter named Elizabeth. And then he ends up having her beheaded calling her a witch, saying that because she had 6 fingers that she must be a witch. And so he has that marriage annulled. By now Henry's in charge of the church and can do whatever he wants. He ends up, furthermore, your notes are not going to go into detail. Your notes are going to just really talk about how after he dies that Mary restores the Catholic Church and she's called Bloody Mary for killing Protestants. And then Elizabeth I becomes the most adored queen in English history. But watch the video because it's going to tell you a lot of more fun facts about all